So, welcome to Beauty of Colors podcast, Bracha. It's great to have you on the show.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. So, tell the listeners about you and what started you on your journey of being a children's author, writing children's books.
Yeah, well, my goal was to write the books that I wished I had as a child. I I wanted to, my goal was to explain to children as early in life as possible that they are spiritual beings, not just physical beings, and that they can nourish their souls, that that's what we're here to do. And children can absorb this. So that's what I've been doing in my books. I explain this to children in a joyful way.
Mhm,
And and the goal is to help souls to shine as much as possible.
mhm. So, how many books have you written?
So 42 books have been published so far, 42 children's books. They're
Okay.
all picture books for young children, and then just one book for adults. I'll hold it up. This is
Mhm,
this is my memoir. It's the only book that I wrote for adults, and
mhm,
I really didn't exactly write it because I more compiled it from my like excerpts from my actual diaries and journals and letters, and then I filled in the missing pieces, and it's like a documentary of 20 years. So the reader kind of goes through it, experiences it with me.
mhm,
Um, yeah, like developing how I developed food addictions
mhm.
and how I healed from them. It's gradual, and you get to actually experience it with me, including like the very raw, very low periods of time when I was really suffering and just doing really bizarre things, that a person does when they have an addiction.
Mhm. So the children's books that you've written, is it like a series or is it different on different topics?
So some are a series, like, let's see, I have these books for really young children so that, like, from 1 month old, a
Mhm,
child can begin to like see other babies. They love seeing pictures of other babies when they're babies. And from the very beginning of life, they can start to look at the world through joyful eyes. And that's my goal, to teach happiness skills to very young children so they'll have them the rest of their lives,
mhm,
and they don't have to play catch up like we have had to play as adults. So so and and all of my books have gratitude skills tucked into them, so children begin to learn gratitude, not to take things for granted early on in life.
Wow, that's amazing. So you also have a publishing company, is that right?
So the first 40 books, the first 40 children's books that I wrote were published by traditional publishers. I would send out my books and they were published.
Mhm,
And then my children, actually my youngest children, they said to me, you know, why should the other publishers be publishing your books? We're going to start a publishing company. So they began publishing my books. So now I don't send my new manuscripts to other publishers anymore. I
mhm,
send them to my children, and it's really exciting. We work on it together, editing it,
mhm,
picking the illustrators. And now, like, my daughter-in-law is creating animated videos and audio books with my books too. It's very exciting keeping it in the family.
mhm,
And my daughter-in-law was a preschool teacher, and
mhm,
my son is a first grade teacher. So their minds are also very aligned with speaking in the voice to children in a joyful way and helping them. So we all work together. Yeah.
Wow. So what's the name of this company, your publishing company? Does it have a name?
Yeah, it's right now it's the Goetz Bookshop, just our family name. It's actually the name is going to be changing. Oh gosh, I don't even remember what the new name is, but it has something to do with gratitude because all my books, that's one of my goals. What I discovered in my pathway is that gratitude is what fills us up because why do people overeat? Why do we have addictions? Any kind of addictions? Because we have an emptiness within, and that empty hole is genuine.
Mhm.
And we try desperately to fill it with externalities, external stuff, whether it's gambling, alcohol, drugs, food, whatever it is, shopping. And it just makes the hole bigger because it's not a physical hunger. It's a spiritual hunger. And what fills a spiritual hole is gratitude. That's what I finally discovered. And so that's what I'm sharing with the world in so many different ways, through all my books. Yeah.
Wow. So what is the pleasure ladder? What is that?
Oh, thank you so much for asking. The pleasure ladder is based on ancient mystical wisdom. It's not coming from my head. It's it shows that there's an abundance of pleasure in this world. Um, Again, the reason why people overeat or engage in other addictions is because they feel like there's a scarcity of pleasure in the world. They feel like they don't have control. That's how I felt, afraid of the world. It felt like there wasn't enough pleasure. And when you learn about the pleasure ladder, then you recognize there's truly an abundance of pleasure available to all of us every moment. The pleasure ladder has 5 rungs, like our 5 fingers, which can remind us it's within our hands to bring pleasure into our lives. So the 5 levels of pleasure, they correspond to the 5 levels of the human soul. And the lowest level of the soul is the part that's attached to our body. So that lowest level of pleasure is energized by, it's nourished by all the natural physical pleasures in this world, like the natural foods, being in nature, music, moving our bodies. Our bodies are designed to move. All these things bring us pleasure. When we experience them with gratitude, it elevates both, it nourishes both our body and our soul. And on each level of pleasure, I have actually, people can download it from my website, a really nice chart of the pleasure ladder, and they could put it on their fridge
Mhm.
or their cupboards, and it reminds them if they feel like overeating or some other addiction, or they just feel lonely or bored, it shows them that there's an abundance of ways to bring pleasure into your life at any moment. We have the power in our hands. I don't know if you have time, but I could tell you about the other levels of pleasure if you want, whatever you tell me. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead and let us know the other 4 levels.
Okay, sure. So going up the pleasure ladder, the next one above the natural physical pleasures is love. And love, it seems like it's dependent on somebody else. How can we love if there's nobody with us and we're feeling lonely? How? Because the ancient definition of love is focusing on the virtues of another. So even in prison, even in solitary confinement, a person could think of a grandmother that once did a kindness for them, and instantaneously they are filled with a warm emotional feeling. That's love. And so we can bring it into our lives at any moment. Nobody has to be present. We can fill ourselves with love, focusing on the virtues of another. So again, it's being grateful for somebody else. And Meaning is the next highest level, is doing something good and meaningful in the world. So I was on another show and the host said he was feeling lonely and depressed, and he ate 2 slices of pizza, and he's about to plow through the whole box of pizza by himself.
Mhm.
There's a knock on the door, and his neighbor needs his help for 2 minutes. He helps his neighbor, comes back to his apartment. He no longer wants the pizza anymore. What happened? Like, what changed? He filled up with gratitude that he could help somebody else.
Mhm.
So he could put the rest of the pizza in the fridge for the next day. He did so. He's filled up with gratitude that he could do something good and positive, meaningful in the world. Each one brings more connection, because when we are in addiction, we are feeling estrangement, disconnection. We need connection. This is what the pleasure ladder brings. And higher than meaning is creativity. This is surprising, but if you think about it, when you are in the middle of being creative, you don't feel like eating or sleeping. You're in a zone that you feel so high, that like you're not even aware of time passing when you're in the midst of being creative. Yeah. So that's the next highest level. And the highest level of all, it's called transcendence. And like if you've ever been under a starry, starry sky at night, I still can bring it back from my childhood, especially in the country.
Mhm.
You feel like you're part of a greater universe. It's this feeling of transcendence when you, like, the veils of separation just lift and you recognize that we're connected. We're all connected. And we're all connected to the same source energy flowing through all of us. That's transcendence, those moments when we can recognize that. And we have the power to climb any rung on the pleasure ladder at any moment. There's just one price to pay, and that is gratitude. It's gratitude that brings us to each rung on the pleasure ladder.
So to sum up the pleasure ladder, to summarize it, you would say is just gratitude. All of those 5 components that you have mentioned, it all comes down to gratitude.
That is the way to reach all these 5 levels of the soul, to nourish them all. And without gratitude, we have a miserable life. It changes everything. When my life, when I wasn't appreciating my life, when I didn't know why I was living, when I really didn't even want to go on any longer, the world was a very gray place. And when you bring gratitude back in, fitting for the name of your podcast, the world fills up with colors again. It becomes bright and beautiful. That's what happens when gratitude comes back into your life and you don't take things for granted like you did before.
So where can the listeners get a copy of your books, the children's book as well as Nourish the Soul? And how can they get in touch with you? And what is your website?
Thank you. That's exactly it. It's all on my website.
Mhm.
You can download the pleasure ladder, I think, by putting in your email address, and all my books are there. So it's the www.getzbookshop.com. And I hope you'll visit. Makes my children happy when people visit. And it's so important for people to know about this pleasure ladder. It's just not known. And I'm loving spreading it into the world. So I just hope people will bring it out, and bring it down, download it, and fill up their lives with more and more joy. Because again, any moment that we spend being grateful is a moment that we're not being miserable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is so true. Just being grateful for just being alive. It's yeah. So that is so inspiring, Broca. Thank you so much. Um, so where do you have any like speaking engagements coming up, or do you have like do you go to the library and do you read the children's story to the children, or do you do it virtual?
Yeah, I do both. I
Mhm.
do lots of virtual presentations. I do in person. Right now, next week I'm going to Florida to give present. I just I go around wherever people want me to come, and I love doing this. I know my most popular books of all actually are my safety books. Hundreds of thousands of copies of the safety books. People have changed their lives. Children feel more empowered when they know guidelines for living. You'd think people feel more restricted, but no, guidelines help you to feel more free, to enjoy life more when
Mhm.
you know how to be in this world. That's what I love explaining to
Mhm.
children, and they have more of a sense of safety and security when they know that.
Yeah. It's like being disciplined. When you're disciplined, like you know exactly how your day is gonna go and you kind of discipline it, you feel as if you have more time and more freedom throughout the day because you have already kind of scoped everything what you're gonna do. So you kind of you have that discipline that runs through. So is that
Beautiful.
yeah. So
Beautiful. It's like I describe it as a dance.
mhm,
It feels regimentation at first when you learn dance steps. Once you get it, you can flow. You can truly dance when you learn the steps. So, same thing with the happiness skills. When we get them down, at first it feels a little weird being grateful. It's like traveling on a road that's all gravelly, no one's traveled on it. Once the grooves are in, we have neuroplasticity. We create more neural pathways. The more we practice gratitude, the easier it becomes, the more we can fill our lives with joy.
wow, nicely said. So, Broca, do you have any last words for the listeners about not giving up on their dreams and kind of going for the pleasure ladder and just doing what they've been grateful actually?
Exactly. You know, when a person feels lost and empty, you just have to plant a little seed. Be grateful for something, for an orange that you're breathing, for all the parts of your body that are working right now, all the diseases you don't have. There's so much we all have to be grateful for. Plant a little seed, be grateful for some. From that little seed grows a tree, grows infinite amount of fruit in your life. So one little step, but this is what you're doing. Each time you're grateful, you're planting a seed
Mhm.
so you can have the fruits of a more grateful life.
Wow, nicely said, Broca. Well, thank you for being on Beauty of Colors podcast.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to be with you. Thank you.